Welcome back to Fast Attack, Slow Release. My name's Nate Brown. Thanks for joining me. Today we're talking to a good friend of mine named Logan. He's got a band called Of the Valley. He just self-released a 3-song EP called Roses, and we're going to talk to him about DIY recording, plugins, how to find inspiration, maybe a little bit of what his process looks like. So we're talking to Logan Dallimore today, a good friend of mine.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, Logan.
Hi.
Thanks for joining me today. I really appreciate it. You've been very accommodating with my wildly fluctuating schedule all the time. So I appreciate you being here. This episode might go short because my wife might have a baby at any minute. That's what's been making scheduling so hard.
I can just deliver the baby and we can just jump right back into it if you want.
Can you clamp the cord and cut it? Because I don't want to.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll just run a one-man show.
One-man show.
Oh, good segue into the podcast.
Yeah.
Check that out.
Speaking of one-man shows, Logan, you just DIY recorded your first EP, right?
Yeah.
Artist name is Of the Valley.
Yep.
Of the Valley SLC on Instagram.
Yeah. And
you wrote, produced, recorded, mixed, mastered everything by yourself, right?
Yeah.
How did that start for you?
Very poorly.
Like a lot of trial and error? Is that what you mean by poorly?
Yeah. So essentially I started with, like the skeleton of the song, a chord progression and some lyrics. And I basically start with the chorus for most of my music. And I'll kind of record it and make it in Pro Tools.
Yeah.
Which is kind of unconventional because everyone likes a different software for producing their music.
Yeah.
But I know Pro Tools well enough.
I'm the same way.
I just love Pro Tools.
I
get into arguments and we're just
You're
staring at Pro Tools
right now.
Oh, avid. But yeah, I will debate the hell out of people if they say they use other software.
Cubase, Pro Tools.
Yeah.
My thing about Pro Tools, and this is not an ad, this is not sponsored by Avid, but the thing that I like about working with Pro Tools, and I think a lot of it is familiarity.
Totally.
But I can't edit or loop anything as quickly or as efficiently in any other software as I can in Pro Tools.
Yeah. Well, it would take you so much more time to get that efficient in another software.
Yeah.
It'd be a waste of time.
Yeah, exactly. So you already know the software. Why not use it? Even for me, I've got Logic on my computer because I've got clients that will send me Logic sessions.
Yeah.
Even if I come up with an idea in Logic, sometimes I'll mess around in Logic. It's got some cool things like the drummer setting and stuff. It's kind of fun. But I'll get my idea and immediately export it into Pro Tools. If any software programmers for Logic are listening, you need to fix your multi-tool. You don't have one and it needs to be fixed. I don't want to set a different command click option for everything that I want to do. So, that's why I like Pro Tools. And for you and I who are actually we went to audio engineering schools, Pro Tools makes a ton of sense to us, right?
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
That's not to knock on Logic or Cubase or any of the others. I've heard great stuff come from Logic. I've heard great stuff come from Cubase and Ableton and all those guys.
I started on GarageBand.
Yeah.
Went to Logic and then went to Pro Tools and never turned back.
Yeah. And I'm the same way. I tried a couple different little $50 softwares that I picked up at Best Buy because I was a freshman in college and didn't know what I was doing. But I think one of the cool things about everything moving over to download is everyone has a 30-day free trial now of their software.
Yeah.
So you can, as a beginner, you can go in and just Google recording software and just download the free trial of everyone that comes up. And at the end of that 30-day trial, you should by then know if you like that software.
Yeah, you can figure out which one suits you. If I had an option to go from GarageBand to Pro Tools, I probably would have found out that suited me better before I did a bunch of Logic certifications and all that jazz.
It could, but you never know. Because the thing that I like about, if someone started on GarageBand, the thing that I like about Logic is they don't have to relearn the software.
Yeah.
They just unlock more features.
The menu system's identical.
Yeah. From a purely creative standpoint, I honestly feel like Logic is a little bit more conducive to an initial burst of creativity. But then after that, I'm just like, give me Pro Tools.
Yeah, a lot of people say that. What makes you say that? Why do you like Logic for creating?
I think in terms of coming up, like, I mean, just coming up with a raw idea, you know, like I do that in my living room, right? Before, and then I rush back to my little recording nook and I hurry and lay it down in usually Logic because they have different, like, usually my ideas come from playing guitar.
Yeah.
And so,
Me too.
you know, Logic has different amplifier settings that are passable, right? And I've got the UAD plugins as well.
Yeah.
So I like just being able to load up even just like a preset guitar setting just to kind of like hash out the idea.
Yeah.
And then the drummer track is what does it for me with Logic. Because it doesn't sound like a drum machine. I don't know if you played around with it much. It's a new feature in Logic. It's, you know, you can load up like a rock drummer and you can have him like you've got like a little XY grid and you can just kind of drag around that grid and it's like louder, more aggressive, more intricate. And you kind of back it off, and then it'll throw in random fills like at the end of a bar, so it's not just like that same hokey '90s like doom do doom do doom do doom.
Yeah.
So it varies. It sounds a lot more human.
Okay.
And so that way, it almost feels like jamming for me, but I don't have to put up with the politics and offering suggestions while managing egos. Like I can just write my own music. I'm not a good collaborator.
That's why I do this whole thing on my own.
Yeah,
I've tried with a couple of people, and I don't like it when people say no to me musically.
Yeah,
you know.
And see, like I have the opposite thing. I'm just like I hate telling people what to do in that way. And I think for most people, I think what draws us to creating music is that aspect of self-expression.
Yeah.
And a lot of times if I'm telling people what to play, how to play it, and when to play it, I'm like, I don't want to limit your self-expression.
Yeah.
And then they'll be like, tell me what to play. Like, how many times am I supposed to play this? I'm like, just play it until you feel like changing. So, I mean, that's why I do it, is because like I'm bad at telling people, like I'm not a band director at all. But it's weird because when I'm producing a band, I'll just be like, hey, you should play it this way. Like you should make that suck less.
Yeah. Well, that probably comes in to play when you're thinking about probably like the arrangement of it.
Sure.
So if like, you know, you have two guitar players and they're both on the same string, you're like, hey, only one of you are going to play that.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's definitely that to it too. But I mean, going back to the DIY recording, not having to have someone tell you how your song should be is a huge plus.
Yeah, there's no influence on it. So it's 100% organically you.
And on the flip side of that, like I totally get where you're coming from, because every now and then I'll be working on something and someone will come into the studio and be like, oh, well, that kind of sounds like this. Have you thought about doing it this way? And then all of a sudden they're on their phone and they're pulling up Spotify and they're showing me someone else's music while I'm trying to make my own. And I'm
really?
like, we're not talking about someone else's music right now.
I'd be like, get the hell out of here.
Yeah, get out of here. So I get where you're coming from. So you start on guitar and then like, where does it go from there for you?
So I will basically just record just like a guitar track. No, not to a click or anything like that. And then I will listen to that guitar track and I'll tap the tempo out. So I'll get like an average tempo of how I was terribly playing it, you know, and then I'll put a drum track. I'll program a drum track to it and then I'll play it again. Sure. So it's perfectly timed.
Yeah.
As perfectly as I can do it.
Yeah. A lot of people think that like these great song ideas just come up totally organically, but it's not. It's a lot of work. Like you have that initial idea and it's like, cool, that's a great idea. And a lot of people stop there and they're just like, all right, play drums to that. And you're like, what? No metronome? No roadmap to this song?
Yeah.
It takes a lot of work.
Well, yeah, and the whole playing the drums thing really helps, because if you're a guitar player that doesn't know how to play the drums, you're going to write some crazy drum parts that don't make any sense.
What do you mean by that? That like they don't loop well, or?
I just don't think that people know how to make drum loops, because they'll take something off of like Easy Drummer that's like 100% generic, or they just don't know how.
Yeah,
they don't understand that like the kick falls on the 1 and 3 and the snare on the 2 and 4. So yeah, I'll kind of start there and then vary what I just said, where the kick and snare falls, until it's not just some boring beat.
Yeah, you throw like some ghost notes and like
Yeah.
Just throw like,
Or like
maybe
some
an eighth note
offbeat-
every now and then.
offbeat stuff. Yeah. And then yeah. And then you think to yourself, what's next? Like, was
Sure.
that the verse? Was that the chorus?
Mm-hmm.
How do I transition in between the two parts? And then, yeah, write leads over it. Bass guitar usually comes last.
As it should.
Yeah. But it's funny because like most of my songs that I abandon are because I never put a bass guitar in it.
Really?
I think. Yeah.
Mine are because I never do lyrics and vocals.
I usually start with the lyrics and vocals. Like I'll usually have that in mind.
Like guitar, then lyrics and vocals, or do you like lyrics and vocals? Let's write a guitar part to kind of go with it.
So I usually will have a lyric and a vocal. Like I write the melody and the lyric in my head, and I'll put it in my phone, and then
you throw down like a basic chord progression.
Yeah, I kind of know what the chord progression is going to be. So like, those three elements of the song kind of come together at once, and if the chord progression is not there, I can figure it out pretty quick. Because I'm like, that sounds dumb, that doesn't, that kind of thing.
Okay.
But I think the reason that a lot of people don't finish their songs, or maybe I'm just projecting why I don't finish songs onto everyone else, is because it doesn't sound like a full song. Like if you just have like your drums in there and like some like really thin sounding guitar part and terrible vocals, you're just gonna be like, this doesn't sound good.
You want to walk away from it every time.
Yeah,
You're like, ugh.
But then you double track the guitars, pan them wide, put the bass in there and a lead, and then you sing over it, and then you tune it, and the drums are already there, and you're like, I can see where this is gonna go.
Absolutely. Yeah, production is key.
Yeah.
Especially now, I mean, maybe not so much, a few generations back, but people aren't really used to hearing tracks that aren't fully produced anymore, and because it's easy to do now, or easier, as long as you know where to look, right? I mean,
you're saying that people aren't hearing tracks that are, say it again?
So what I'm saying is, people aren't, back in the day, you could take a punk rock record and people were into it just because like they didn't have this decades long standard of high production quality.
I get right? You. It doesn't sound good.
Yeah. So you could take the Sex Pistols and people loved it because it was raw and it was angry, and they didn't have this precedent set quite. I mean, there was still like polished poppy music in the 70s. I don't think there was, decades of music backing that up yet.
Well, yeah, it was harder to get into the studio for a lot of those guys too.
It was way harder. Yeah, because it was expensive, a lot more expensive than it is now. And so, I mean, I think people were a few generations back more willing to accept something that wasn't as polished.
Yeah.
Because I mean, even like you can throw on even just like a Pennywise record or like some of the hardest, filthiest punk you can think of, and you can still hear the production in it now.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why people tend to walk away from their own stuff, is because like, why doesn't it sound like it's on the radio yet?
Yeah.
A question that I get a lot and I'm sure you get a lot too, working in the audio industry from, like home recordists, is like, why isn't my stuff is loud? Like the meter's red. Why isn't my stuff loud? And things like that are kind of off-putting to people now.
Yeah. Yeah. I hate the sound of clipping.
Yeah. I mean, and it's just kind of that thing that makes people, I think, again, just kind of like run away from their own song, right?
Yeah, a lot of that is, timing. A lot of people don't play to a click track.
Yeah.
When they're first starting out, which, sorry, but you need to do that.
You need to practice.
And you're going to suck at it for 3 months.
Yep.
But it's going to be the most rewarding thing that you do in music because it makes you a musician.
Absolutely. It makes writing music easier. It makes like keeping up with the band a whole lot easier. And it makes things like, it takes all the trepidation out of transitioning from chorus to verse.
Yeah.
If you can play to a metronome, there's no question about when everyone's going to hit that downbeat again.
Yeah. And I like Pro Tools again. I'm going to plug Pro Tools because you can put it in grid mode and you can see where, okay, my verse is 16 bars and my chorus is, 4 bars or 8 bars. I like being able to see that visually.
Absolutely.
And if your timing's wacky, then you're gonna have a bad time.
Yeah. The other thing too that I've noticed between experimenting with Pro Tools and Logic is tap tempo for the metronome. I cannot figure out how to tap tempo in Logic. I've looked it up. I've gone on forums. I cannot figure out how to tap tempo my metronome in Logic.
That seems weird.
It seems counterintuitive to me.
Yeah.
I can't find anything on how to just tap tempo. So, I mean, and for those that don't know, tap tempo in Pro Tools, you know, if you've got your key signature pulled up, you just sit there and tap T in beat with the music, and it tells you how fast you're tapping that key. So, and I know there are widgets like Blue Couch Lounge or something like that has like a tap tempo widget. I don't want a widget. Put it in the software.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm with you. I definitely prefer editing everything in Pro Tools with that grid mode. As long as it's to a metronome, super easy.
Avid, if you're listening, I want a free copy of Pro Tools 8 for the lifetime.
Pro Tools 8.
That just seems reasonable. They're like, okay,
you want that? Yeah, sure.
You want that old piece of junk?
I think I have Pro Tools 8 M-Powered. That was the first Pro Tools I used. So I think I've still got the box for that somewhere.
Was it on a CD?
It was on a CD. It came with the original old school iLock that was like 3 inches long.
I've never even seen those.
You never seen those? Like the green and red ones?
No.
The teal one was for Pro Tools LE, which used the DigiDesign interfaces.
Yeah.
And then if you got Pro Tools M-Powered, it came with a red key, and that only worked with M Audio interfaces.
Oh.
Yeah, it was like right after DigiDesign bought M Audio. But yeah, I mean,
man, that's another reason I hate this. We were talking earlier about interfaces and like the little proprietary software they come with, and I find those so annoying.
I do too. And I mean, and they always try to push you to use them like, oh, look, it's so flexible. I'm like, I don't need it to be flexible. I need it to give me an input and output into the software that I'm using.
Yeah.
And like everyone does it. It's not like RME has the, like their mix something software. Total Mix. RME has their Total Mix software. UA has Console. Focusrite has
Mix Control. Dude, I have Mix Control, and it's been doing this weird thing where it just like randomly is changing the clock source. So I was
really?
Like, yeah, I was freaking out. I thought I had my monitor, my central station, my monitor control system just like died on me. It was like the one thing I've ever bought used, and I was like, oh no. I was like reading all this Persona stuff about like if it goes down, what to do and stuff.
And they're like, buy a new one.
Yeah, pretty much. Everyone's like, it's toast. And I was just like, I mean, that Mix Control software has kind of given me some trouble in the past. Let me just look in there real quick. And I was like, damn it, it's not even like on the same clock source. It was clocking from ADAT, which there's nothing in ADAT right now.
Yeah, crazy.
Get it together.
Have you tried downloading a driver update?
No, but I did try turning it on and off again.
Cool. Well, you're halfway there. Okay, so I mean, it's interesting to me to hear that you start with a vocal idea, because vocals, I'm just like fascinated hearing about other people's process. I ask musicians this a lot, like, what's your process look like? Because I always feel like I'm doing it wrong. I've got like some pretty hardcore imposter syndrome about it. And so like vocals are always an afterthought for me. And I think the reason why is because like vocals make it done and final and real, and then I have to show it to somebody. My wife has never heard a song that I've written because I don't finish them, because if I don't finish them, then I don't have to show them to anybody, and then I don't have that super vulnerable feeling of like putting my entire just open soul out in front of somebody and have them reject it.
Yeah, that kind of is scary. It sucks.
Yeah, so I mean, I admire artists that can just do that. And I mean, you've been working on your EP for a couple years now.
Embarrassingly took me a long time. A lot of it was just like done and recorded, but like my just mixing quality just wasn't up to snuff. So I was just like, I'm just gonna keep doing this again and again. Now it's way better than it is on Roses now, because I'm better than it when it came out, you know? So.
Yeah. And I mean, I think it's good to hold yourself to a high standard. I think that's, you know, I don't think there's anything wrong with holding yourself to the same standard that you hold other people too. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's the fair way to live your life. So Roses is the new EP from, I mean, the new EP and the title track from the EP.
Yeah.
Everyone's asking what's up with us, but I just act like I don't give a fuck, 'cause I don't. Yeah, I know that I broke our trust, but I did my best to make that up, and you won't ever let it go. Now I'm just searching Cried out rose on your wall. I keep waking up from every dream that you are consistently haunting.
So you were talking about me starting out with vocals. You said that was interesting. The reason I do that is because I don't know what to talk about otherwise. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
It's kind of like one of the tips to like writing lyrics is like you write the title of the song, and then like every time you get stuck, you reference the title of the song. It's at the top of the page, and you can just like, keep talking about it.
You do everything in reverse for me. Like I don't write a title for the song
I don't
until
do that
know
either.
the
It's
song.
just that's what other people say.
Oh,
to
okay.
do. Like I have to have something to write about. Like
Sure.
I need something to say, but then I kind of go backwards because usually I'll get stuck. I'll be like, okay, here's the chorus. This will be a cool verse guitar part that'll go there, and then I'm just like, I have nothing to say in the verse.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say. And then I'm in your situation where I'm like, now I got to put some lyrics to it to finish the song, and then I end up in purgatory.
So how many songs do you have right now that are just like they're waiting for something like a bass line or lyric or whatever?
I have a couple. I have like 5 ready to go for the new album.
Cool.
And a few of them need that extra thing, or they need to be rewritten in some parts because some of it comes out very cheesy. And you're like, oh my God, did I write that like 2 months ago? That's terrible.
Goodness. Yeah. Make sure it ages well for sure.
Yeah.
We were just cleaning up some boxes. I guess I didn't realize this about myself until recently. Like I've got some hoarder tendencies. Like I had just old notebooks from high school with just the angstiest lyrics I've ever read in my life.
I have a shoebox full of
them.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, oh, like I might go back to those. And I read them the other day. I was like, these are garbage. And I just like, I threw them away. Then I tried to just burn the memory that they ever existed.
No.
I am purging. I'm just like purging my past 30 years. They're just going away.
Were there any little nuggets of gold in there?
No.
Because I revisited some of the stuff that I wrote when I was in high school. And I was just like, oh man, that girl made me super sad. And then like I'll write like some angsty thing, and I'll just be like, whoa, that was pretty good. You didn't have any of those moments?
No, I mean, I definitely had like, I was like, oh, that was clever, but like stupid clever. You know what I mean? Where it's just like, it's like that would make for an angsty post on Pinterest or something. And I don't want to be like Pinterest for like upset 16-year-olds. That's not
Dude, that's
not
a good
what
market.
I'm after.
That's a good market.
That's the market, right? That's who's buying music is upset 16. Well, that's who's stealing music is upset 16-year-olds. Speaking of stealing music, so
that Of the Valley EPs is still on Bandcamp
it
right
is
now.
still on Bandcamp right now. You can pay as much as $0. I would highly encourage spending at least a couple
50
bucks.
cents.
50 cents, $50. But a lot of people are going to this now. By the way, you can. It is. Let me pull your URL back up here.
I believe
It's
it's
PayPal.
Of the Valley SLC.bandcamp.com.
Yeah. So you can
I
download
should
the
know that.
album. You can go to Bandcamp. You can download the album. Just search Of the Valley. The EP is called Roses.
Yeah, it's the one with roses on it.
It's one of those. It's one of those. It's got all the roses. If you need help, what a rose looks like, Google it. You can pay what you want for it, and a lot of people are going this route. And like, I think it's noble, and I appreciate like Radiohead did it with In Rainbows, and I think that's like their top grossing album now, which is kind of cool to me.
Yeah,
because people could have paid what they wanted for it, but it kind of underlines this trend happening in music where people don't want to pay for music anymore. People want to pay $10 a month for Spotify or whatever.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think even $10 a month for Spotify is a step up from the year 2000 when people were just downloading everything they could from like Napster, WinMX, LimeWire, all those all those virus traps. And I'm kind of interested to hear like your experience with this. I mean, for me, it seems like the only way you can get people to value music anymore is if you put it on vinyl.
Totally. A lot of the bands that I listen to are releasing stuff and it's digital or vinyl.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. And the digital's usually a pay what you want, right? Or
sometimes. I mean, that's usually happens when someone's not on a label, because there's people
Sure.
at the label that need to
The
get
label
paid.
needs their money.
But a lot of people are doing it. I mean, the reason that I'm doing it is because nobody cares about you when you start out. And that's just like the God's honest truth, and people need to hear it.
It's the rough truth,
So the reason you give your music away for free is for exposure.
right?
Like, people can listen to it for free. There's no commitment. If they don't like your music, they can just turn it off without wasting
Yeah.
money.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my concern and something that I advocate for a lot is just pay musicians. I hate hearing about club owners reaching out to musicians and being like, hey, I really like your stuff. We can't afford to pay you, but it'll be good exposure. As a studio owner, I get that. People are like, I can't afford to pay you, but it'll be really good for your resume. I'm like, my resume's fine. I don't need the exposure. Exposure doesn't pay my bills.
Well, so yeah, it's like, oh, someone knows your studio in Germany. It's like, great.
Yeah, fantastic.
Are you going to buy them a plane ticket and have them come record over here?
Yeah, because that's
No.
a lot cheaper than the rate that I was about to charge you to play 5 songs at your farmer's market, you know?
Yeah.
So, and like the pay what you want thing, I think is really cool. I think it's really selfless of the artist. I think it highlights, you know, a desire to share your art with the world. And I think that's a good and noble thing.
Yeah.
I think the thing that makes me sad is that artists have to do that, you know?
Yeah.
And you know, definitely you'll appreciate it more with the struggle. I get that. But I mean, can it at least buy you a coffee once a week?
Yeah. I mean, people need to support the artists they really like. I don't pay for Spotify or anything because I like to listen to records the whole way through.
Yeah,
And if I'm going to do that, I'm going to buy it from the band that I like.
absolutely. So Dan at Performance Audio on the sales counter, he and I were talking about this the other day. Because Spotify, it's not really a very big secret. Spotify pays just god awful royalties,
Nothing.
horrible royalties, and we've actually talked about it on this podcast before. I think with Dan, and Dan was mentioning, you know, he's like, I use Spotify to discover artists, and if I hear a song I like on my Discover Weekly, I check out the artist. If I like more of their stuff, I'll go to Randy's Records or Grey Whale or whatever, you know, record shop, and I'll buy their record, and that's how I support artists.
Yeah. I was thinking about this the other day, and I thought it was really, really odd after I started thinking about it, because I was like, the only way that bands make money now is on tour.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, you're paying someone, a third party, to buy tickets to see this band live.
Yeah.
So you're not even like really buying something that the band is offering you.
Yeah.
You know? And then
You're offering a broker, pretty much.
yeah,
you know, a ticket
you're paying
broker.
the third party, and the third party's paying the band.
Yeah.
And then that kind of situation comes up again with the only other way that bands make music nowadays is with the merch.
Mm-hmm.
So they pay someone to buy like 1,000 t-shirts, and then they pay someone to print the 1,000 t-shirts, and they've already paid someone to do the design on the t-shirt, and then they finally sell it to you and they get a cut of it.
Yeah.
It's like everyone gets a cut of what the musician's done
Mm-hmm.
before the musician gets a cut of it. And the
Yeah.
only thing that like the musician can actually sell is their music, and no one's buying music anymore.
Yeah. It's
so
a lot
odd.
of
It's so weird.
yeah. It's kind of. I mean, it's kind of bleak, especially when you look at it like that.
Yeah, totally.
You know, and people keep doing it because they love it, right? It's you know, it's cheesy. It's cheesy to say, but I think music. Well,
Say it cheesy.
yeah.
Just do it. There's no way
I
around
hate
it.
myself right now. Music saves lives in a lot of ways. I mean, I know
Totally.
it has stepped in just like my lowest points in life, and like, you know, I found inspiration in music and been like, this is my thing. Like, this is why I keep going right
Yeah.
now, is this thing. And, you know, or not even so much that, but just like, oh my gosh, like I was feeling this way. I heard this song and it just helps me process this thing that I'm going through.
Yeah.
And you know, when you look at it that way, you know, like I think making music or making art or doing anything like that is being put out there and that someone finds comfort or help in it, like I think that is a priceless thing that is completely unvaluable.
Yeah.
Meaning like you can't attach
Invaluable.
value to that.
Yeah.
Invaluable, thank you. And so to see an artist like perform a service like that huge, instead of buy a coffee that day, how could I not just buy your album on Bandcamp?
Yeah. I actually bought this band's album on Bandcamp the other day because their stuff like makes me want to write better music.
Yeah.
You know? So I was like, I gotta buy their EP and like dissect it and like see all the cool stuff that they're doing and kind of put my flair on it, or at least draw inspiration from it. That is invaluable to me. Like I only had to pay $10 for that album
for years of inspiration.
Yeah, totally. And like every time I listen to it, I'm just like, and the mixes are phenomenal. Like the drums are just like in your face, and it's
really
awesome. Yeah.
What's the name of the band?
The band is called Parachute Day. They're kind of like a pop punk band, but they're instrumental.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's really cool because all the guitars have to do all the hooks.
Yeah.
And there's like just cool drum patterns and stuff.
A band that's been doing that for me lately is a band called Frightened Rabbit. They've got a song called The Woodpile that's just like they're a UK band. The lead singer just died, actually. I discovered this band because the singer died. And so I'm bummed out that I'll never get to see them live.
Yeah, that's good exposure.
Yeah. It's good exposure. Oh no.
You
please
can cut
don't
that out if you want.
Please don't. No, we're going to keep that in there. Please don't die for exposure. That's, it worked for Van Gogh. It worked with me for Frightened Rabbit. Even though Frightened Rabbit already had millions of listeners per month, I felt like I was not getting invited to a really cool party since like 2005.
Far from the electric floor, removed from the red meat market, I look for a fire door, and escape from the drums and barking, bereft of all social charms. Struck down by the hand of fear, I fall into the coroner's arms. Same way that I've done for years. I'm trapped in a collapsing building. Come find me now. We'll hide and we'll speak in our secrets.
I used to write, be really angsty and into all this like metal and all this stuff, and I kind of like, as I kind of outgrew that phase of my life. There's nothing against metal. Like I think metal musicians are talented people, and
for sure,
I still enjoy listening to heavy music. It's not what I want to write anymore. And when I finally heard Woodpile in particular by Frightened Rabbit, it just like, it was like, oh my gosh, like this is more the style of music that I connect with now.
Yeah.
And I've started writing a lot more stuff along that vein, and it's really helped me kind of like find a little bit more direction creatively. It's given me a lot more, like, it's given me that outlet again that I lost for probably like 10 years.
Yeah, when that kind of spark is gone, and then you see like a different spark, like you can't pay for that. Like you can't, go buy a new guitar to make you write a new song, or you can't do anything like that. But when that inspiration from someone else, strikes, like you gotta hit the metal while it's hot.
Yeah, absolutely. Strike while the iron is hot. Inspiration is it lasts a lot less than what a new guitar does.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and I've bought tons of guitars looking for inspiration, and like you said, like it's not about the instrument. I mean, the instrument will, a $1,000 Strat is going to sound better when you finally record that song, but it's not going to inspire you. And it seems like a lot of people go out and they're like, well, I'm stuck. I'll go buy a new Stratocaster to tell me what to do,
Yeah, or something. I mean, I'm super guilty of that too.
I mean, everyone likes having new guitars. It's fun.
Yeah.
It's,
But I've done it with like plugins. Like sometimes you just need a justification to buy something new.
Absolutely.
Like, maybe I'll write a cool drum part if I buy this upgrade I don't need for the drum software.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm going back to the vocal idea again, or just like the vocal
structuring the song around
tangent. Well, not even structuring the song. Well, I mean, in a way, the sonic quality of a vocal and how it fits into a mix is an important thing.
Totally.
And you bring artists into the studio, and you can have your best microphone that costs you $4,000 on there going through a $10,000 preamp, and it still just doesn't sit right in the mix. And so what I want to know is like, everyone has their go-to vocal chain, right? Everyone has, what I see a lot of is like, I want a U87 through an Avalon VT 737, and then that's going to run through. They usually don't care what converters. It's going to go through my Focusrite, Scarlett or whatever. Hopefully a Claret at least, But everyone kind of like, for me, my go-to, the vocal chain that I reach for first it's really simple. It's my Lauten Audio Clarion.
Yeah.
And I run that usually either through my UA Twinfinity 710 or I've got a PM 1000 that I've modded to sound like some 1073s. So it's either that through some 1073 style preamps or like a Twinfinity usually.
Yeah. And
I know you've got some pretty cool outboard gear.
I've got a couple cool things.
Yeah.
My vocal chain right now, I love SM7Bs. It's probably one of my favorite microphones ever.
Mm-hmm.
I like it because it's kind of dark, and I find my voice to be annoyingly bright.
Okay.
So lots of de-essers, and
I think your voice is deep and sultry.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You should really look into a career as a Barry White impersonator.
Done.
Okay. So continue. SM7B through your...
So I run that into... I forgot what it's called. It's a LA610 by Universal Audio.
Okay. Great preamp.
Dude. It kind of just like adds to the rich character of an SM7B.
Absolutely.
And then I will run that into my distressor.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
The LA610 is a great preamp. I've been wanting one forever, and every time I have the money, I find better things to do with the money, like pay a bill or whatever.
Yeah.
But the LA610 is, I was hoping you would actually say the LA610. I didn't even know you had one. But like the cool thing about the LA610 is that's kind of a vocal chain within itself because it's got the LA2A style opto compressor in there.
I bypass that, by the way.
You bypass it, really, because you don't like tracking the compression.
I do track the compression with my distressor.
Okay.
I haven't played with it enough.
Okay.
I'm more comfortable with my distressor, so I end up using that more often than not.
So do you mix out of the box with the distressor?
Dude, I haven't for some reason.
Okay.
Usually it's because I've already mixed it with a distressor emulator.
Yeah, you got UAD plugins.
I don't actually.
Oh.
I use the Slate stuff.
Oh, okay.
Which is really cool.
Yeah, and it kind of like I use the UAD stuff, and they've got a distressor as well.
Yeah,
and it's interesting how close they're getting with them.
Yeah,
and you as a distressor owner, I would be interested to know like how close do they actually come for you? Can you still hear a difference? They're a little.
I honestly don't. Like, to me, I don't care,
Sure.
Because you're modeling a great compressor.
Mm-hmm.
So either way, it sounds really good.
Yeah.
But I will say that I have heard the shootouts of the UA stuff versus the real deal.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty damn close. The Slate stuff isn't as close.
Okay.
But
it's interesting.
They just sound cool,
Sure. There's this whole revival craze is kind of interesting to me because you have some less expensive companies out there that are doing things like modeling in the LA2A and the Pultec EQ and the U47s. So, I mean, there's a company doing a $300 U47 FET style mic. I've got a vintage U47 FET. Theirs is $300. Mine values in thousands.
Yeah.
It was like frustratingly close, like how close the little $300 U47 sounded, but it was still like, and maybe it's because I was looking super hard. I was like, make me not hate myself. But I could, there was that just little bit, like that extra 2% that you'd get out of like the Neumann. And I've held for a long time just the notion that I think it's that extra little teeny tiny bit that's what makes that more expensive, and that's what puts it above the other stuff. You're not paying, I mean, the $4,000 difference is for that 2%, and like you either want to pay that or you don't,
If you have the money, go for it. But I mean, you could put all of that money that you're saving towards other stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Get a compressor. Get a good converter.
Yeah. I mean, if you can get an outboard LA2A for $900 or get a UA LA2A for like $200, that's a lot cheaper than a $4,000 like hardware compressor that's made by the same people that make the software compressor, by the way.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. And I mean, they're really good at it, but I mean, they'll even still tell you like it's close, but it's not the same.
Yeah, that I heard that's due to the algorithms that they have to run. Like they could probably make it the same, but like your computer's not going to run it.
Sure,
You know, the algorithm will be so much more intense because of the non-linear characteristics of the actual analog gear.
Absolutely. And it's also, I mean, you talk about the algorithm, like the algorithm is a thing written by a person trying to mimic like a hardwired thing. You know, it
varies from model to model to model. So
exactly. Like how long, like which LA2A are we modeling today? Because this one's been around for 60 years. So how many cigarettes have been smoked around this thing?
Well, maybe that's like the difference too between the $4,000 one and the $3,000 one is that's what if you get two $4,000 47s and they both have a 2% difference between them.
Yeah.
You never know. That's
a cumulative 2%? So together are they 4% different?
Yeah, so then it's way worth it.
Yeah. I was talking to a rep for Neumann once a couple years ago, and we were talking about the U87. I don't particularly have a ton of love for the new U87s, and I was being very candid with him.
Did you see that super ugly, like all chromed out one that they released like a year or two back?
Yeah, we sold 2 of them.
Yuck. Yuck. Bad move, guys.
Yeah, bad move. But he was telling me, he's like, so the new U87s, he's like, these spec exactly the same as the ones in the 60s.
Doubt it.
Yeah, that's what I said. And his thing, and I don't know if this is true or not. This is what he told me. He's like, the reason why they sound so much softer and so much warmer now is just from years of use and stuff building up in them. If you were to go through, this is what he told me. He said if you were to go through an old U87 and clean it up, it would sound like a brand new one. And I'm sure someone who's told him that, and maybe it's true. Maybe it is true. And let's operate from the position that it is true. I still don't want it to sound that way. You know what I mean?
You want it to sound like an old.
I want it to sound like an old
87.
U87. That's the good one. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's the one everyone wants.
Yeah. And if the Legend was built on the way it sounds now, then that's cool. But leave that in the 60s.
Well, yeah, I mean, you have the technology to make it sound like
we
an
have the
old
technology.
Do it.
It's a $3 million man, $6 million man. Anyway, sorry. We have the technology. What were you saying?
I was saying that, I mean, they're like, it sounds different now because all the components are new. Make them sound old.
Yeah, make them sound old. That's it. That's all you have to do.
People are paying almost $4,000 for your microphone. Make it sound the way they want.
So we've got this new microphone. People aren't liking it too much. What should we do? Make it old.
Or you could like smoke a pack of cigarettes around it a day.
Yeah. Tom Waits it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Make it drink a handle of vodka. Yeah. You know, that'll really get you that. I guess Tom Waits was drink a handle of whiskey and 5 packs a day.
Oh, yeah.
And you'll get that good U87 sound.
He probably sounded like shit through an 87 anyways.
That brings up a good point.
Can I swear on this podcast?
You can swear on this podcast.
We'll 1K beep him out.
Yeah. Beep. We might one. But the Tom Waits sounding awful through a U87 mic is, I wasn't planning on talking about this, but I was thinking today about how I don't really think that there's such a thing as a bad piece of gear. I think just like the wrong gear for the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Like Tom Waits, his sound can't be anything other than cheap mics through cheap processing to get that Tom Waits sound.
Yeah. Well, that's
the same with the Flaming Lips.
Well, that's why I don't like, condenser microphones on my voice is because it's like, okay, well now I'm going to have to de-ess it.
Yeah. It's too much detail.
I'm going to have to like do a filter on it anyways. Mm-hmm. It's like, why wouldn't I just do something that's going to get me closer anyways?
Yeah. It's just those 2 less steps.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like I could use an 87 on my voice, but then I'm going to be like spending like an hour trying to get my vocal to sound right, or I could use a 7B and spend 5 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why it's important to kind of go through and allow your vocal chain to be fluid.
Totally.
Because especially if you're a recording engineer who's recording other people, or let's say you're an electronic music artist and you like to have, like guest vocalists. That's a really common thing.
Yeah.
The question that bothers me all the time is like, what microphone should I get? It's like, well, what are you doing? I don't know. For what voice? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's, it's a natural question to ask, and it's a natural thing to want to know, but it's not an easy thing to answer because, I mean, that can change. Even if you are doing all of the singing on your stuff, that can still change from arrangement to arrangement. Right?
Yeah, totally.
And so, I mean, we get caught up in these questions of like, what's your go-to vocal chain? SM7 through LA610, bypass the compressor. That works for you most of the time. Let's say, let's say, you
might not work for a female vocalist.
Absolutely.
She'll sound like a dude, maybe.
She'll come in and sound immediately like Howard Stern.
Or she'll sound like me, even worse.
Better. She better sound like Logan. I don't think Howard Stern can sing. So, I mean, if someone's singing on a record, I would prefer they sound like you, because I've heard you sing on your record, and it's pretty good. I like it.
Thanks.
It's great stuff.
I tried my best.
Yeah. Well,
I will say, though, we're talking about, getting the right gear for the right application. $100 microphones into a $100 interface aren't the right application for anything.
Most of the time, I will agree.
Most of the time. But I mean, like the people that are trying to do what I'm doing, they want to get, why doesn't my stuff sound like it's on the radio, the stuff that's on the radio? Probably because, they're using a higher echelon of gear than
absolutely
you can afford.
Yeah, and it's an important distinction to make. And that $100 microphone, $100 interface, they're great for doing a demo. They're great for like if you're planning on going into a recording studio, that $100 mic, $100 interface, great for doing scratch tracks, so you don't have to do them at the studio.
Totally.
Great for working out ideas, so you don't have to do it in the studio. And that long run, it'll save you money, but you are probably not going to have a full production record. I agree on that $100 or cumulatively $250 worth of recording package.
Sure.
Yeah. But it takes a lot of effort, and I'm glad that you were willing to put that effort into your EP, because it's awesome.
Thank you.
And I love to see people like really just kind of go for it and like just kind of put everything they've got behind it. And so like I'm glad to see you do that, and I'm glad to know that there are still artists out there who are willing to do that for us, because music is necessary.
Totally. Like you said, it saves lives. Totally gave my life direction when it needed it most.
Absolutely.
And now I know what I'm doing with the rest of my life.
That's fantastic. Well, thanks for coming in and talking to me today.
Thanks for having me on. Can I plug my music video really quick?
Yes, plug your music video.
So I just released a music video for Roses. It's out on YouTube. Can you put a link in the thing for it?
Yeah, we'll drop a link in the show notes. But
Cool.
Real quick, because if people are like me, I never check show notes. What do they search? Just
Of the Valley. If you're on YouTube, just go Of the Valley Roses, and then
Great.
you'll see a handsome bearded fellow on a YouTube thumbnail. That's me.
The one with the red beard, though.
Red beard.
A red beard. You've got a fiery red beard, but kind of like the daywalker type. You can go out in the sun and not blister. So
for like 10 minutes.
that's pretty cool. So, but that's why we don't hang out much in the summertime, is because you'll catch fire.
Yeah.
Yeah. So nighttime.
That's a whole
only.
mess.
Yeah. It's a lot of cleanup.
lot of
I've seen
sweeping.
it happen. Well, thank you.
That's a good way to end it, huh?
Oh, I enjoy you. I think you're awesome,
Thank you.
and I'm really appreciative
having me on.
of your time. Thank you.
I'm stoked to listen to this again and hear that morbid joke I made about your new favorite band.
It'll be a good time. Want to thank Logan Dallimore again for joining me today. If you want to check out his band Of the Valley, you can visit them at Bandcamp. We'll post links in the show notes for Of the Valley and all the bands that we talked about today. Just go to podcast.performanceaudio.com. Check out the show notes for that. Thanks for joining me. This has been Fast Attack Slow Release. My name is Nate Brown. We want to thank Performance Audio for putting this on every week. We'll see you next time.